Shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And oh, what a thrill to have a performer in front of me right now, a singer and a actor whose Broadway credits include the original Kiss of the Spider Woman, not the movie, but the original Broadway musical there. He was an understudy in Rent when that was on Broadway for years and years and years. He was in Marie Christine with the great Audra Ann McDonald, and another show with her called Shuffle Along. Plus, he did the national tour of Once on This Island, and he won an OB award, so he must have studied the OB method. But he was in The Running Man off Broadway. I had to do that joke. I'm sorry. You've also heard that voice on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel as one of the characters there. He is in writing for the Philadelphia Tribune. Rita Charleston lauded this man, Darius De Haas's, quote, enormous talent, so many talents, it's almost too difficult to list them, although I just did. And he is here because he has a brand new album out, and it's all about, you should pardon the expression, Christmas. Yes, he has, like everybody else, he's got a Christmas album. It's called Let Me Carry You This Christmas. We are carrying on here with Darius De Haas. Shalom, Darius!
Shalom. Shalom. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. You know, the usual phlegm in the prostate, but other than that, I'm good. How are
Yes.
you? You were traveling. Where were you? Just
I was in Virginia with my husband's side of the family, my family in Virginia. We were, just not too, I would say not too far from Richmond. I can't, I have no sense of direction, so I can't tell you which direction from, but in the lovely, Blue Ridge Mountain area. And so we were there for, an extended pre-holiday weekend with family out there because, we don't get to see each other on Christmas Day proper. So you have to try to, strategize. And when you can see family prior to, I'm going to go see my mother tomorrow, who's at the Actors Fund home and all things. So you're just trying to figure out all those logistics. So yeah, we saw them this past weekend.
so no, I thought you might be performing because you were doing shows at 54 Below just a week or
Yeah,
two
I
ago. Yeah.
and that was just before Virginia. That was, like the just leading up to Virginia. I was here and there and everywhere and doing a lot of promo and
Or,
yes, and doing
as the
concerts.
phrase goes, yes, Christmas, there is a Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little comedy right there. How did you meet your hubble? How did you meet, you're married for a while now. How did you meet your husband, Darius?
How did I meet my hubala? I like that. How did I meet my hubala? Well, I met him, and he should be on this interview because he likes to give the long, extended versions of this. But back in the late 1990s, there was a club called Twirl on 23rd and 8th Avenue, and it was a multi floor, like a duplex, maybe a triplex building, gay club that had, their gimmick was that I shouldn't say maybe their gimmick, but their marketing thing was that you could win a birthday party for yourself and 20 to 30 of your closest friends. So, of course, bring 20 to 30, to the club, you buy the drinks and the dancing and all that stuff. And so I had just been on a tour of a show called I Was Looking at the Ceiling and Then I Saw the Sky. It was an international tour of this sort of opera thing, contemporary opera thing. And I had just gotten back into the city, and there was someone who I was, had such a horrible crush on. And it wasn't working out, and basically, just had my heart broken, blah 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 blah. And so a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, Richard, was having one of these parties at the club. And he said, Darius, could you please come in? And I was like, and he said, the last place I want to be is in a club with a bunch of people, I'm depressed, I'm mad, I'm this, I'm that, I was Mr. Scrooge. And I said, Darius, don't be like that. You have to, you have to support your friend, be there and all that. So I called my friend Chris. I said, well, Chris, could you please come with me to this club and we can, you could be my buffer, because it was one of those things where you're standing outside a club. There's like a million people standing outside waiting to get in, and I hate that, and so I was just like, okay, well, at least I'll have a friend to talk to. So of course Chris knows everybody. He knows everybody in the line. He's like, hello, 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 flitting here and there, and I'm standing there like that. And he happens upon this, trio of two or three guys, and one of them is this guy, very very sweet faced guy with these little droopy eyes, and just very very sweet, and Chris says, oh, Chris, he's, oh, Darius, this is my friend Kyle, and I was like, oh, hi, how are you doing? And he's like, oh, you're Darius. I was like, yeah. He said, yeah. Oh, you were in Kiss the Spider Woman. I was like, yeah. And he's, yeah, and you were in Rent. I was like, yeah. And the way I'm saying it, I was like, yeah, yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, I really am not up for Rent heads or Rent fans, and I love them. I love the Rent fans to this very day. But I was just like, I can't turn it on for Rent. I can't turn. I just, you think about it, it's like, oh, it was rather selfish that night. I just was like, no, I don't want to be. But he was very, I could clearly see he was kind of interested, but I was, sort of like, But we go into the club, it's really crowded. I'm really cranky, but we managed to find a seat, in the corner of the club, and there's a go-go boy dancing, doing this thing. He was like, getting this groove on and everything. And he's very, very, handsome, very engaging, and the conversation goes everywhere. And I think there's something to be said for when you are in that kind of state of mind that I was in, you don't care. So you just sort of, you're not trying, because in these clubs, everybody's trying to, show their best, and trying to, be all, it's like, put on their best face, or trying to be very, alluring, and being,
I
I
wear
did.
my shiniest tallis when I
Well,
go to
right,
clubs.
exactly. Wearing their shiniest, tallest, very, just, and they were putting on. I did not care. And what was really, I was like there, I'd seen other guys there that I had dated at the club, and I was like, ugh, and I was just like, I was like, this is a nightmare. Uh, so I'm sitting there going, this is some crap, and I'm sitting there, and at one point the go-go boy at the top of the bar, in his gyrations and doing all this thing, he said, hey, I'm just trying to get money for my law degree, because I'm going to be a lawyer. And everybody was like, yeah, right. You're trying to get a law degree. And I was like, look, don't laugh at him. Don't laugh at him. I can very much get with the fact that he's doing this. Look, you can make good money at these clubs. You get those tips. He looked great and everything. And look, he's trying to, and law school is expensive. Look, I'm not mad. Don't laugh at him. And he's probably a very successful lawyer to this day. I didn't get his name or anything, but. But I was just very like, look, don't, look here, Queens,
Not all lawyers are Jewish. This
you
is,
know,
yeah.
exactly. So, I think Kyle was very impressed by that. I think he was very impressed by that. And, the fact that I just didn't care, and I, stood up for the go-go boy and everything. And eventually he called my friend Chris, and he says, look, do you think Darius would mind me talking to him and everything? And Chris called me and he said, do you think he could calling? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not, whatever. And, we spent like a good hour with me going, I'm not interested in a relationship. I do not want, an hour, mind you, speaking for an hour, It's like, I'm not interested in a relationship. This is not going to work, blah, 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 blah. And here we are 29 years later.
Wow. And by the way, your husband tells the long version of this story. That's
I gave his version.
Okay.
I
That's
gave
great.
his version,
Absolutely.
for your lovely viewers, So there you go. If you're looking for love, the lesson to take away from this is be totally cranky and mad and aloof, and go to a gay bar and and then, 29 years later, you'll be happily married.
Actually, this brings up a work-related question, in a manner of speaking. Since you've done so much Broadway and you do a lot of concerts and cabaret with orchestras and things like that,
Yes.
how do you navigate a performance when you're just like feel crappy or angry or your throat's like meh, and then you have to bring it for two,
Yeah.
2.5 hours, whatever? Does something go off in your head, or is it just natural? It's like you leave it at the door and boom. What do you do?
Well, I say it's a combination of things, but I think the thing that I've learned, and this is the nice thing about being older, and and this is not for me advocating like when you are really, really sick and you just can't do it, then it's just like But that aside, I say, look, it really isn't about me. It's about what these people are going to experience, and particularly if you're doing a themed concert or anything like that, I will find that audiences, for the most part, will be very, very forgiving if you are not feeling in your best voice or whatever, but if you don't make it about I mean, and if you can get yourself to at least be able to carry yourself through the performance. And I was personally very lucky to have a voice teacher that really knew how to, give me strong techniques. So even if I'm not feeling at my best, I was like, okay, this is where the voice is. Can you do this? Can you do that? This is where you're going to have to sort of, lighten up a little bit. Don't worry about having to hit all the big notes. Stay in a nice medium place. And if you do that, and before each performance, I really do say a little mantra to myself, going, just give it over to the people and let it work through you.
I
Let
mean,
this
we're
work through
talking
you.
about illness, or if you have a sore or cold or things like that. But also, like, if you're in, as you say, a cranky, rotten mood, and you have to
Hmm.
go, do you use that in a, no, I'm talking not just cabaret, I'm talking now maybe if you're in a show, a musical. Do you use it and sort of let it filter into your character that night, or do you keep it out completely and make believe that everything's fine for that character?
I would say that that can work to a point. And when I was younger, I was able to use my emotional state depending on what the show was. But I would not recommend that as a constant thing because it's about being in the moment, but also technique as well. And I really do stress technique because when you have a good technique, and particularly when you're acting in a show or even when you're doing concerts, because I would say, and this may be because of having jazz musicians as parents or whatever, none of my two performances are exactly the same. But the same could also be said of Meryl Streep. She gives different takes, different, whatever. And I would say if it could be used, but the thing is, you have to be very careful that, and particularly when you're in interaction with someone else in a scene or whatever, that you really take great care to really be present and listen to them. I think listening is very important, even more so than you being like, okay, well, I'm mad now, and I'm going to use that. You can use it, but you still have to stay very, very present. And which is why I say you have to give, still stay in that sense of generosity and being open. And, because sometimes when you come in and you're like this, sometimes you're so in your head and you're so about what you're going to do that you're not listening, you're not present, you're not this, and all those things have to come into play. I feel, when I was young, I did a show many years ago called Children of Eden, and I played Cain, who,
I'm glad you were able.
yeah, exactly. You're snappy, snappy. Yes, 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 Rabbi. Um, but and I w that was such a joyful experience for me. But at the time, I was so motivated and so uh not anxious, but I was just so wanting to share so much of what was in my heart at that time. And Cain was a very passionate character. Some people say he was very angry, some he was evil. I never thought of him as evil or anything. I thought of him in that interpretation of the book of Genesis, very, very passionate about wanting to get out of this situation, being in the wastelands with Adam and Eve and his brother Abel, and going to what they thought was Eden, being in Eden, and that was his dream. And the reason I bring it up is that I had just done Rent for a little over a year, and I had done a couple of other shows, and but I really, here was a role that really allowed me to display my talent. And so I really poured everything into it. My frustrations, my anger, my eagerness, my earnestness, my I poured everything into it. And at that time, you're younger and everything, you're just like, so I would say in that instance, because I was able to really tap into that thing of let me show you, and that was a lot of my early career is like, I will show you, let me show you, come on, let me show you. And I would say in that sense, in the most positive sense, because he does do things in the show where he does kill Abel and all those things.
It
And
happens.
so I couldn't be so like, that I was just kind of all over the place. But I was able to use that in order to fuel that. And I think in the best way where you can fuel that with, and stay consistent and not harm anyone and not harm yourself, then that I think is the best way to go.
Now, I'm guessing you will have a story about. I'm just. I'm
But they're all
guessing.
not going to be as long as the
I love.
truck.
No, I love it. I love it. I can just listen and laugh and have so much fun. So that is why it's not even on my list of questions here. I'm going to ask you, what is the worst audition you ever had? I'm guessing. I'm
Oh
guessing.
gosh, what is the worst? Oh my gosh. Oh, well, let's see. What's the one that I can talk about where I'm not incriminating?
Or
Because
one where you are incriminating. That might
uh,
even be.
well, I had an audition for the Motown the musical. Motown the musical.
Yeah, yeah.
And it didn't go great. And the thing is, this was the callback for it. It was the callback. Oh, and I just thought about another one that I was a callback for, but I'm not gonna tell you that story because that does really incriminate somebody. But Motown, yeah, I was called back for it, and was told in not so many words, look, Darius, this role really is yours for the taking. You can do this role. You know so let's so I would, without them saying we will give you the role, because they never said that. But I didn't take it for granted. I said, well, let me really just go in and make sure, because this was for, I think, either replacement or for the tour or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll go in and everything. And because my initial audition for it went great, and I went back, and I remember it being I was sitting in the waiting room for at least a half hour. For at least a half hour. And so, of course, you have to do a million things in order, at least for me, to kind of preserve yourself, to kind of keep, because, when you're in an audition waiting room, people going in and out, people are talking, this, and I really have to go into monk setting where I have I just have to kind of be quiet, because I don't really like talking. I really don't like socializing in audition situations and everything. I just really want to preserve it all for that and get out of there. And I guess there had been something that had happened previously, before I was finally called in, like a half hour late. And I was trying to just be, because I was like, oh boy. And I went in, I was like, hi. And I was like, how's everyone doing? And, the director said, I'm fine. and all the energy just got sucked out of the room. And I was like, oh boy. And this was the same director that told me, "Oh, this is gonna be fine. You're gonna be great." Blah blah blah. But no, he didn't say I'm fine. He said, "Well, I'm here." That's what he said. "Well, I'm here."
Oh,
And
okay.
I just, me, little sensitive actor, be like, okay, okay, let me just pull myself together here, and I sang it. But I just remember being very tight and very like, because the song was a big ballad. It was like his big second act ballad, I think, and it was for the role of Barry Gordy, and
Whoa, yeah, all right,
and
yeah.
and it was just, and it just all the energy got sucked out of the room, and I was just like, okay, well, yes, and I knew going out of the room that, and that is the thing, and I think the lesson from that, in hindsight, is that at the time I was so angry at the situation and at that particular director and everything, but and the situation of waiting so long to go in, and all these extenuating circumstances. And the thing about it is you're always going to deal with extenuating circumstances, even in this day and age of how we have to be very careful of what we say to young performers, and all these things, and just be very mindful, I would say, be mindful. The business is still the business, and situations more often than not do not present themselves in these perfect sort of things. Your best day of singing more than likely will not be the day that you do the audition, will not be the day that you are singing on stage at Carnegie Hall. It'll be when you're folding your laundry. I heard wonderful sopranos say this recently. You'll be in your laundry room folding your laundry, going, oh, whatever, whatever, and be like, gosh, I sound really good. Ooh, I hope I remember that when I'm on stage performing, my concert or whatever. And, because that is, those are the things. So, really having to just be very consistent, and practice, and be mindful of your technique, or just staying in a sense of, for me, generosity, and just and being able to let things go afterwards, which is a hard thing for me to say. Like I said, I'm a very sensitive little thing, and so it's just, you really do have to be able to ride with it, because we're, no one is owed anything with this. We do it because we love it. And when people say, well, what is your advice to young people? I say, to really just be very, dedicated, know why you want to know it, do it because you love it, not because of how many likes you're going to get in Instagram, or fame, or any of those things, because even with those things, there's more pressure to deliver, and there's more pressure, and believe me, everybody has their struggles, the most famous of the most famous, the most known, the most admired, everyone has the things that they are dealing with. So it really does make it about, the enjoyment of the work.
Oh, as I mentioned, I'm dealing with my prostate all the time, and yet here
Exactly.
I am.
How do you give yourself a happy prostate? It's like, okay, prostate, how can I take care of you?
Various ointments are somewhat helpful. But what we are dealing with right now is the wonderful Darius De Haas. The thing is, as we mentioned at the top of the show, he's got, yes, it's a Christmas album. Go
What is he
figure.
doing on the show? My goodness, what's going on here?
Well, you're pushing something here. Do you actually have a copy of it? I mean, I've got some of the cover here, but what's
Oh gosh, I do, but it's down.
yeah,
I don't have it up here with me. I'm so sorry. I'm bad. Oh, that's
you are
bad.
bad, but you have to talk about it. So tell us, how is the Darius De Haas Christmas album different from the Bing Crosby Christmas album, the Chaim Yankel Christmas album, the Tiny Tim Christmas album? How is yours? Yours.
The way it is mine is that it really does very intentionally come out of my experience, out of my personal experiences, even more so than what was even intended. Because I've been wanting to do a Christmas slash holiday album for years. I've been doing Christmas concerts for 10 years, holiday concerts for 10 years. And it was always the intention to do an album, to do a recording. And it was great to have the opportunity to do these concerts over time so I could sort of sift through and really figure out from audience response what felt good in me, what grew in the arrangements and in the approaches musically and just from an experiential standpoint what I would want on the album because I grew up loving holiday music. I love and I love it from all corners. And I come from a musical family, so not only loving holiday music, but loving music in general and wanting to infuse that sense of what my family musical legacy is into this and really having my own voice uh honestly come through. So it had been in the works for a good number of years, and then when the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel came around, I had the great pleasure of working with songwriters who wrote the original music for that show, Tom Miser and Curtis Moore. And I said, look, guys, you all really so know my, I mean, the original songs they wrote for Shy Baldwin, who was the character I provided the singing for, uh, they knew my voice so well. And they knew how to get into the heart of the warmth of it, and the expansion of it. And so I asked them to write me a Christmas song. And that song, Let Me Carry You This Christmas, sort of became the hub of what I wanted to convey, what I wanted to really say in this, and what made it uniquely mine, but at the same time, also hopefully in people listening to it, they could relay their experiences through it as well, because the song really is about the passing of tradition from the parent to the child, and what happens when the parent can no longer do those things, decorate the tree or put up the lights or do those things. What is it that what did we learn and not just from parent to child, if it's friends, if it's relative, whoever in your life gave you that sense of magic, who gave you that magic. And so they wrote that extraordinary song for me, and that became the hub of the album. So, to answer your question, I think that is what makes it uniquely mine, but hopefully, and people listening to it, because I recorded it twice. I recorded it back in 2020, the song Let Me Carry You This Christmas, at the tail end of at the tail end of the pandemic. So really more 2021. Released it as a single and had a video for it and all these things. And then I wanted to redo it for the album, in it's sort of maybe a little bit more intimately, because I just do it with the wonderful pianist Matthew Whitaker. So we have that. And I also want to just touch on different aspects of the holiday experience. The joyful, the fun, the silly. In my case, my father was a jazz bassist. So I have a version of Silent Night with just the bass. Um, also having songs that are not Christmas songs at all. I do Annie Lennox's Cold. There's a song that was written by the wonderful Annie Lennox, for anyone who's familiar with her from the Rhythmics and then her wonderful solo career. Very prolific songwriter to me. And I took her song Cold, which I'd been singing for years, and it has all this wintry imagery in it, icicles and cold and all this stuff, and just the emotions of being at that time sort of in a relationship that does not work, of being with someone who just does not want you. That was the initial motivation behind that. But over the years of singing the song, and why I wanted to include it in the album is I think it speaks to a bigger thing of having there's a lyric that says winter has frozen us, let love take hold of us.
Oh,
Now we are shivering blue ice is so I really lean into sort of those more universal things. And for people who know that song, and from when I released the album, and even when I released that as a single earlier this year, people say that song really resonates with me. And so I wanted to have a holiday album that would embrace hopefully as many people as possible. I did a concert prior to the 54 Belonging, and did a concert the weekend before that, and I sang Let Me Carry You This Christmas, and this lovely lady came up to me. She said, "Oh, I love it, and I hear you're gonna do your concert. What songs are you gonna be singing? And I said, well, it's a holiday concert. She said, well, I'm Jewish. I don't wanna, I don't, I said, well, look, I'm not just singing Christmas songs in my concert. I'm not just singing, I'm singing this, there's a song called Snowbound in it that, is a jazz standard. There are a lot of, I really wanted to embrace as many people because the holiday season isn't just one thing, you know holiday, whether you're talking about Christmas, whether you're talking about Hanukkah, whether you're talking about Kwanzaa, whether you're talking about it and a lot of people kind of go inward. It's not about holly jolly, holly jolly, ooh, ooh, ooh. Christmas sums up a lot of things for people. It's a very emotional time. It's a very difficult time for a lot of people because I mean it's been a difficult time for me, particularly this year. And that's
was
why
it your father or your father-in-law passed? Someone passed in
my
April.
my father passed in June of 2022. And so it was around that time that I started getting all the things together for, the recording of this album. But he passed away. My beloved cousin Ronell, they passed away the year after that. And then just this year, my beloved uncle Andy Bay, wonderful singer, pianist, beloved in the jazz world and in the music world at large. He passed away just this past April. And along with that, a lot of dear friends have passed away in this year. And so doing that in the landscape, doing this album, and what I was referring to, how lucky I was, how fortunate I was that I had this to pour all of that into, pour all of my love and my grief and my joy and all the things that these people gave me. They carried me. When we have the title, Let Me Carry You, it's not me carrying everyone. It's like, I'm going to carry it's all these people who have carried me through all my life. My beloved voice teacher talking about technique and, oh gosh, I would have never been able to have, I think, done it in a way that I felt was authentic and just as full a sense of myself and my experiences had I not had these people in my life. And so with my love, because I love all I mean, I love the Barbra Streisand Christmas album. I love Joan Baez. I love Bing Crosby. I love Judy Garland. I love Donny Hathaway. I love the Handel's Messiah. I love the Handel's Messiah Soulful Celebration. I listen to so much Christmas music or artists who have recorded, and I love different people's takes on it. So that was also part of it. It's like, how do I have something that makes sense, that has a journey, but culls from different things. So some things lean more into the jazz, some things lean more into R&B, some things lean more into very traditional. And how do I put it all together? And let me tell you, Rabbi, it's not an Christmas albums, holiday albums are not easy. I bowed out to I was listening to Bing Crosby. Kyle and I were listening to the Bing Crosby Christmas album yesterday. And I was like, wow, wow, that is an X. And what he does, of course, there's I'm dreaming of a white Christmas and all that stuff. But also, there was a very Irish, Christmas song that I don't think is very well known, but very much in that Irish tradition and everything. I was like, wow, this is great. This is great. I have just such great respect for people, the crafting of those sorts of albums.
Well,
And
that's why I wanted to suggest for if you're doing a sequel, I do have a song called "Let Me Drag You This Shavuos." I can send you the lyric sheet if you want. It's about
please, please, please,
17 stanzas long. It could use a cutting of one verse or two, one or two though.
we can work with that.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. By the way, we are working here with Darius De Haas, ladies and gentlemen. We just a couple more questions for you because we're having such a wonderful time talking. But gotta talk about a little bit of your Broadway career there. I am curious when you were in Kiss of the Spider Woman on Broadway. Who was your Spider Lady? Was it Chica or was it Vanessa? Who was it then?
I had the great fortune of making my Broadway debut led by a company led by Chita Rivera. And then it was Cheetah's last, uh, if I remember this correctly, Cheetah's last 4 months in the show. So I came in the show roughly around the same time as Brian Stokes Mitchell.
Wow. Okay.
We joined the company roughly around the same. He joined it just prior to me, and he was already in the show, like staying, but he had just joined. I had been hired, and so we joined roughly around the same. So we did Cheetah's last 4 months, and then Cheetah left to get ready to do the national tour, and Vanessa came in. So I did Cheetah's last 4 months, and then I did Vanessa's first 3 months.
Any
And then we
stories
left to do
about
Carousel.
Oh, but any stories about either Chica or Vanessa or both? Any fun, happy, wonderful, anything? Any anecdote?
Well, my my first time meeting Cheetah was I had been, hired, and the dance captain Dan O'Grady had been working with me and getting me together and doing all my stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, Cheetah Rivera, Cheetah Rivera, Cheetah Rivera, Cheetah Rivera, oh my God. Because, she for me is ultimate. That is Broadway royalty. It is Broadway legacy. And it's one of those for any of us who love Broadway, who love or who just love the arts in general, because she belongs to the world. Cheetah Rivera belongs to the world. And I don't know, even if for people who may not have be familiar with, her influence is indelible on Broadway. And when I was brought, back, because they were like, I had to have my put in. And prior to my put in, they said, well, do you want to meet Cheetah? And I was like, yeah. And I'm brought, her dressing room was on the stage, right side of the stage. It was on the, so it was on the stage right side of the stage. And first thing I heard was, I just hear this voice, ah. And I go in, and she's having a mani-pedi, and she had a towel wrapped around her head, and she was in a white robe, and and I didn't know what to expect. And she's like, "Oh, you're the new boy. You're the new boy." And the first question out of her mouth was, "Do you bake?"
Okay.
Do I
Well,
bake? Uh, no. Oh, and but the reason she asked me that was I was replacing a wonderful singer, actor, dancer in the company, Adrian Bailey, who we lost earlier this year. Adrian Bailey. And for Broadway fans, he was in Smokey Joe's Cafe. He was the one who sang Stand By Me. And Adrian was a monster baker. He was baking left and right. And as he was getting ready to leave and being replaced by me, he was baking up a storm. And I like to say, oh, he's making sure that no one forgets him. So I was joining the company, full, we're supposed to be in this, prison span, no one's being fed and everyone's throwing up and everyone's, because we're in the Spanish prison, and I'm joining a company full of portly prisoners, you know, eating all those baked goods in between shows and during intermission. So I said, well, no, I don't bake, Miss Rivera. She's like, oh, that's okay. That's okay. She said, do you know the choreography? I was like, yes, I know it. So she was the most generous, the most wonderful. I watched her every night from the wings when she sang the theme song, when she sang Kiss the Spiral. I watched her every night from stage right, in that gown and those wings, and she would come forward. Um, and the other story I'll tell about her is we had one where, we had a song called Where You Are, and we had a thing where at the end of the song where we had to dance with the canes and we do this thing and and then we had to flip the canes in our hand. So I was always very paranoid about dropping the cane. We had one performance where not me, but one of the other guys in the ensemble prison, all the canes, we were supposed to get the canes from the upstage backdrop because they were attached by Velcro on them. And all the canes got knocked down. All the canes got knocked down. He kind of just misjudged and knocked them over and everything. And so at the big climax of the number, we're scrambling around the stage and trying to. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, and then I just let me just grab this cane because and I was like, da 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 da. I was like, God, this cane feels very light and it's bejeweled. Oh, what cane is this? It's like a little, and and I'm like flipping it, and I'm like, oh, good, I caught it and everything. And then I walk off stage, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Cheetah's cane, 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 it's Cheetah. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And she came off stage. She said, "What happened?" Is that, oh, John Norman knocked off the cane. She said, "Well, who's that? That's my cane." And she said, "I think Darius cut your cane." I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I got your." She's like, "It's fine, it's fine." But I ended up with Cheetah's cane, and oh Lord, it was like, but the thing was she created such an atmosphere, because she was a gypsy, one of us. And then, Vanessa coming in, she just carried it because she was making her Broadway debut as well. And we became fast friends and just laughed and giggled and it was so exciting to see someone realizing her dream because her dream was to be on Broadway. It wasn't to be a big pop star, big R&B star, and it was to be on Broadway. And so it was very exciting.
Now, is there a dream? I'm sure you've been asked this one, but a dream role that you've always wanted to play and still can, perhaps in musical theater or regular theater, or um,
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know if there's room, I would love to tackle Hermes in Hades Town. I
oh
would
yeah,
love to do the role that Andre D. Shields did.
I've been trying to tackle my herpes, not working yet, but I'm trying all these different cures. But oh, that's
Yeah, but I would
interesting.
love to, I mean, but
Yeah.
but really, I have found my career has really been predicated on jumping into the fire and having things come happen that I would have never even thought about. I had done Judas and Jesus Christ Superstar, which was a role that I had wanted to do, and I had done that at one point. And then someone, uh, the Alliance Theater
Atlanta.
in Atlanta, they said, "Well, we want to see you for Jesus. We want you to be Jesus in this." And I was like, "Jesus?" And I had never thought of that. I had never thought of that. And it was one of the most glorious productions I had ever done. Um, there was one role that kind of got away that I would have loved to have done, and I'm too old, way too old for it now. I would have loved to have done Candide.
Oh, oh.
Yeah, I love and I would have loved, at the beginning of my career, but I got to work on so many amazing shows and I think the reason I've been able to sustain a career was because of being versatile. I used to think, oh gosh, people don't get me because they can't quite put a particular thing on me and it's like, well, he's this sort of performer, he's that sort of, but I love, in a sense, I think that's the great thing, I guess, maybe being a character actor, a character singer, what I don't know what, because you can tackle many different things and it's stretched me and totally informed where we are today.
Speaking of where we are today, here's one quick question. As we have a couple of more minutes with the wonderful Darius De Haas. And this may be the toughest question that I'll ask, but it might actually come up. If you were asked to sing at the Kennedy Center, well, the Donald Trump John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, would you?
No,
Mm.
I will not sing at the, I'll tell you. I'll tell you something. I was actually supposed to do a show at the Kennedy Center prior to the expulsion of all those board members and all of that stuff. I was set to do a show with the gay men's chorus out there. Yeah. And I had my contract. I had they were like the administrative staff there who probably all were fired. I mean, I don't know, but they got that contract to my agents, and I was, and I was set to go, and then nothing. Heard nothing. Uh, I think it's absolutely awful. I think and I love the Kennedy Center. Anyone who has gone to perform at the Kennedy Center, and I performed at the Kennedy Center on and off since I was uh since before I think the very first time I performed there I was like maybe 18 or 19 years old.
Wow. So it's almost 40 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, so I have kind of a kind of a history and different, I did Once on this Island there of the national tour. I performed there with Stephen Blyer with the New York Festival of Song, doing concerts there. I performed, not at the Kennedy Center, but I've done the Memorial Day thing, at, Capitol, building and
Oh,
everything. So, Memorial, so that's not the Kennedy Center proper, but I have a long history with
Kennedy Center.
that. And I think it is absolutely horrendous what is happening. I think it's horrendous. And this is not a judgment on anyone else who, because I think people have their reasons for it, wanting to be there and maybe being there as a sign of protest against all of that. I don't know. You have to speak to different people. But for me personally, I think it is, as someone wrote, I think it is a desecration.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you come sing at my shul, I will put your name. It will be the Darius De Haas Temple Sons of Bitches. That's absolutely.
I think that's perfect. I think that's perfect. But here's the other thing on that thing, because I think it's an act of Congress that has to approve the name, which
It
I
may
don't
not
think
go
is.
through. It's not
It's
official.
not
Yeah.
official. So the fact that this is happening and curiously quiet in terms of what I see, I think this is like, okay, well, y'all are just letting this man have his folly and just doing whatever you want. But I cannot imagine that it, you know, people are really gung ho for that. I just can't imagine that. So absolutely not. No, as long as no,
No.
no. If I were asked to do a Kennedy Center, and I would love to do the Kennedy Center honors, I would love to do the Kennedy. I will not. I will not do it.
Certainly not in the next 3.5 years. I mean, you don't know what'll, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no one's beating down my door, but no, I absolutely not.
Well, we have been honored with the presence here of Darius de Haas. Let us remind everyone that you can hear him and his wonderful voice singing songs from his album, Let Me Carry You, this Christmas. Was it Concord? How do you get the album? Where do you get the thing?
You can get it, you can get it many ways. It is on Concord Theatricals. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, record on Concord Theatricals through my friend Sean Flahaven, who is the head of Concord, chief executive officer, whatever. But also you can get it through your streaming. If you're a streamer, you can get it, through the Spotify. You can get it through Amazon. You can get it through all the streamers. And it's just streaming and album, like the vinyl, because vinyl is making a comeback. So, so yes, for all you vinyl collectors, you can.
This is
And
made of
you can
vinyl
also
right here. It's
there,
just yarmulke.
there you go. See, there you go. So you're primed and ready. And you can also order it through concordtheatricals.com as well. But yes, it is out in the world through whatever your particular fancy is. And yeah, it's out there.
Well, we fancy Darius de Haas here in the neighborhood. We want to
Thank
thank you so much for your time, your wonderful stories, your great energy, your great music. Please
Thank
come
you.
back, do more shows in New York and all around the country. And maybe come
Yes.
back to Broadway if you can. I know.
Yes. Oh, I would love to. I would love
Very
to.
quickly, very quickly, is anything happening? It got such great reviews out in Pittsburgh. Were in this musical about Billy Strayhorn.
Yes.
And it didn't just get like meh, meh, meh. I mean, it looked like, hey. So is anything happening?
That was a very great passionate project. It is on pause at this time, just because we're in a difficult time, I think, just in terms of getting funding and getting all those things, and because of, many extenuating factors. But no, it is still it just went through a rewrite. And so it is still in development and just trying to find, just the right home. We need another run, I think, place. So there was, interest in a couple of
Come do
regional
it at my
places.
shul. Do it at Temple Sons of
You
Bitches.
would
We have
love it
a
because, Billy Strayhorn is, just, I think, the penultimate. And I would love to bring that show to your shul and beyond.
and beyond. And we are beyond delighted to have been with Darius de Haas. Have a most wonderful holiday time with your husband, with your mom, for God's sakes, with
Thank you.
everyone around you. Be well, be wonderful, and
Thank you.
shalom to you.
Shalom.